Tonight, we're dealing with a subject called structure. It's the structure of the AME Church. It's chapter or lesson number 4. And structure has a lot to do with who we are. We are not possible to remain human beings without structure. All of us have a structure inside of us physically, and that structure is what? No, inside of our physical body, there's a structure that is called a skeleton. That's our frame. And why is it necessary for us to have a frame structure? Hold our bodies together. And it also allows for a leverage for our muscles and for our ligaments to pull from. Other than that, we would not have a possibility of muscles, because muscles have to be pulled around something. So the skeletal frame becomes the framework upon which our whole body is built. Every house has a frame. It has a structure upon which it is built. There's a foundation, there are walls, and then there's a roof, and there are compartments on the inside of the house that separate the space into rooms. And so that structure allows a house to become a building with living rooms, with dining rooms, with bedrooms, with family rooms, etc. So all of those things are important to make up a house. So when you look at the church, not the church building, but look at the church body also has to have a structure in order for it to do its work. We started 2 weeks ago about Jesus actually building the church. He told Peter, "Upon this rock I'll build my church." And if we look after Jesus made the statement and finished his ministry, and before he ascended to heaven, in the 24th chapter of St. Luke, he said that I'm leaving you as my witnesses of all of the things that you have seen. And he said, pray here in Jerusalem until the Spirit of God, the Spirit that God promised, come upon you, and then you'll be able to go and teach and preach and do great wonders in my name. And so they waited, and they tarried together in Jerusalem. And then in Acts 2:1, it said that when they were all in one place, in one accord, that the Holy Spirit came upon them and lit upon them as cloven tongues of fire. So that means the Holy Spirit anointed them. And after they got anointed and empowered, Peter preached a sermon. And the sermon that Peter preached was so powerful that 3,000 people joined the church. Now, what could the church do with 3,000 people? What was the church going to do with 3,000 people? What did the church need to do with 3,000 people? How many of you guys would be satisfied if 3,000 people came to your house as dinner guests tomorrow? Now, that would be a disaster if you didn't have time to plan for it. If you didn't have time to make sure there's food in place, there's a place to accommodate them. It may take a tent in your front yard, a tent in your backyard, and a tent or two in your neighbor's yards, front and back too, to accommodate them, but it's not impossible. So Peter, when he preached the sermon and 3,000 people joined the church, then they had to decide what are they going to do with 3,000 brand new members of the church. Because the church that Jesus Christ organized, nobody was a member of it except the apostles. And now the 12 of them have 3,000 people coming to join them. So how are they going to teach them? How are they going to train them? How are they going to separate them into a body, into a massive group that's going to be able to take the church all of the areas and into all the directions that Jesus told them that the church needed to be taken into? Well, after they joined the church, then quickly the disciples had to do now a good job of breaking them into parts and putting them into categories. He had to find out how many of them could sing. He wanted to know how many of them were willing to join the usher board. How many of them wanted to become a part of the missionary society? How many of them could actually cook? How many of them had medical capabilities or skills? How many of them could do all of the things that a church needed to do? he had to find that out first. And so once they found that out first, then they were able to assign everybody a job, everybody a role, everybody something to do in the whole part of the new church. So whenever we come into any body, into any group, into any setting in mass and great numbers, we have to make sure we divide them and separate them. When Jesus fed the 5,000 people on the side of the mountains, he did it in organization. He told them all to compartmentalize themselves, separate themselves into rows, and then to sit down in rows, sit down in organized fashion. When you have things organized, you can manage them better because that's structure. If you want to do laundry, when you take your clothes off, you usually put them into a bag or put them into a laundry hamper. And then when it's time to wash, you pull them out and you separate them because that's the structure of your laundering matters. When you sit down for a budget, when you sit down with your money and decide how much money you got coming in and how much you're going to spend, you sit down and you put that money into a budget. This is what you have coming in. This is the amount you have coming in. That's the amount you have to spend. And when you separate the amount you got coming in from that which you have to spend, then you can survive. Because if you don't put it together in the budget, then pretty soon you're going to end up either shortchanging everything you need to do, or you're going to end up with no money to do what needs to be done. So a budget becomes a structure for you to manage your money that you have at hand. So everything that we do, everything that we have needs to be structured in order for us to get the best out of it. So tonight, our lesson on structure has a lot to do with how the church comes into organization, how the church comes into operation, and how we move the church from where it is to where it needs to be. So the structure of the church tonight deals with our membership. And because the church, again, the structure is not about the building that we're in, but the structure has everything to do with the membership. So every one of us are part of the membership. The membership of the AME Church is gained through the local church. That means First AME Church, Fame Church in Los Angeles, is a local church, meaning that it's a congregation that we can access right here. The next level above us is what we call the presiding elder district. And that presiding elder district is not something we can actually reach out and touch like we can reach out and touch this building here at First AME Church. Well, the presiding elder district does not have a building. So it's a structure, and we have to support the structure in theory. The level above that becomes the annual conference. And the annual conference, just like the district conference, also is an area. But you cannot reach out and touch it. How are you? Welcome. You can't reach out and touch it. We're just getting into the structure of the church, page 1. Okay? So the structure of the church moves then from the annual conference up to the Episcopal district structure, and then from there to the connectional structure, or what we call the general conference. So all of these different areas, each one of them have a different purpose, and each one of them it is in a different level, and each one of them is made up of different people. So because that's just like our bodies. If we did not have our skeletal framework, we'd be just one fleshy mass of jelly, kind of like a snail. A snail is not an invertebrate, meaning that it does not have a structure. So when you look at a snail, it's nothing appetizing, it's nothing exciting to look at, right? Because it's really something that's small and it's slimy, and it really does not turn you on. But our bodies have physical skeletons, physical framework, so we can do many different things. We can dance, we can jump, we can run, we can do all of these things because of our physical structure. If you take away our physical structure, dancing would almost be impossible unless you're going to move as jelly on the floor. If you take away our physical structure, running and jumping would not be possible. If you take away our physical structure, climbing up with our hands and legs would be literally impossible. So putting the framework in helps it to do the same thing. So all of these structures, all of these compartments of the church helps the church to do many things that it was organized to do. So let's kind of dive into where we are and see if we can make sense out of our structure. The second part rather, is organization. If you look over on the next page, the whole membership of the AME Church is divided into two parts. Anybody have any idea what those two parts are? The membership of the whole church is divided into two parts. There are preachers, or what we call ministers, or clergy, and the other part would be the laity, right, exactly. So we're either lay persons or we are clergy persons. So that's our first division, okay? And then if you want to look at the clergy part, there's ordained clergy and then there's unordained clergy. Ordained clergy means that somebody has already anointed them, laid their hands on them, and have approved their process of training and development up to a point. And so when they get ordained, and that means they're set aside for a specific purpose in ministry. And ministry is to serve, is to give, is to share. And then there's the licentiates. And licentiates mean those persons who have been called to ministry, but who have not yet been ordained for ministry. So they're just there having been licensed, and the licentiates are those who are exhorters or who are local preachers. And then there are the levels of ordained clergy like evangelists, local and itinerant ministers, pastors, presiding elders, connectional officers, general officers, bishops, etc. So all of those parts of the clergy are set up so that we can understand their particular function and their role. And then the laity becomes the members of the congregation, all the other persons who are not clergy, who are not in ministry. And the laity provides for all of the deaconesses, for all of the stewardesses, for all of the licensed missionary workers, provide for all of the choir members and all of the ushers and everybody else who helps to make the church a strong body. Those who serve in capacities such as commissions, and who serve on steward and trustee boards, and who serve in the Sunday school and the various areas of Sunday school as teachers, superintendents, and all that. So all of these roles become a part of the laity. And then anytime you bring 2 or 3 people together, what happens? Whenever there are 2 or 3 people joined together, what happens? Somebody said, whenever 2 or 3 people are gathered together, God says, there am I in the midst. Okay, but let me add something else to that. Wherever 2 or 3 people gather together, there's always conflict, right? How many of you have ever seen conflict? All of us have. Sometimes you have it with parents. Sometimes you have it with your children. Sometimes children have conflict between themselves. Sometimes you have conflicts on your job. Sometimes you have conflicts in your classroom at school. Conflict is just a way of life for people, for human beings. Because not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody wants the same thing. Not everybody forgives the same way. Not everybody is forgiving, is patient as others are. So when you find a person that's different in temperament, a different in mannerism, a different in personality from another person, if they hang together long enough, they're probably going to come in conflict with something, right? So it's not whether or not you have conflict or whether you don't have conflict. The matter is how we deal with, how we manage conflict. How do we get out of conflict? How we learn from it, how we benefit from the conflict that we're in. So in your mind, how would you deal with conflict if conflict arose? What would be your first impulse dealing with conflict with another person? Try and find out what the issue is. Try to identify the conflict. That's a good way to start. What else? All right. And ultimately, you would want to find a way to end the conflict, right? We want to create a resolution for the conflict. We want to resolve it so it's no longer a conflict, because it is out of conflict that anger and anguish can result. And if it results and harbors deeply enough, there can be deep-seated resentment that may turn later on into hatred, okay? So we want to cure conflict as quick as we can, because conflict in its initial stage can turn into something that's really going to be injurious in your relationship in the long run. So whenever two or three people gather together in a church even, if you can find conflict in the home, if you can find conflict in the schoolhouse, if you can find conflict on your job, at work, you can find conflict in the church, because people make up the church, right? Right. All right. Now, we act a little different when we come into church, but normally we're still the same people who would have the conflict at the school, at the bank, at the post office, at the job, wherever it is we are. So the AME Church realizes that there will be possibilities of conflict. So guess what it does? It puts something in place to bring about resolution. We have a judicial council, a judicial administration, and the judicial administration helps us in various levels to deal with conflict. And whether it's on the local level, whether it's between preachers and laypersons, or whether it's between preachers and preachers, or whether it's between laypersons and laypersons, or whether it's between laypersons and bishops, or preachers and bishops, wherever it is conflict in the AME Church, the judicial administration of the church provides a way to end that conflict. And it hopefully ends it so everybody feels good about it at the end. Okay? Wouldn't that be good if you had conflict and you found a way to end it so everybody saves face? Everybody feels good about it, and everybody walk away from the conflict in love, or at least agreeing that you're going to look to try to become in love. All right? So now, that's the way the AME Church deals with its own membership, because if it can't work together in unity, that's what happened when the disciples were in Jerusalem. The scripture said the Holy Spirit came when they were all in one place and in one accord. Three things had to happen. All of them had to be in one place, the same place, and all of them had to be reading from the same book in one accord. Okay, so because it takes accord, it takes concord, it takes unity for you to begin to move in a positive way to carrying out anything. If you have a job you want to do at church, have a job you want to do at work, if you have a job you want to get done at home, and everybody who's responsible for doing the job is hating on each other, can't get along, can't talk, can't communicate with each other, there's no joy between you at all, is it possible to get the job done? Probably not. But if it is possible to get done, it's going to be done with a lot of strife. So, in order to get the church moving and get it operating the way it should operate, then the concord and the unity that is important had to be put into one place. So now let's move now that the church is one group of people and one happy body. Everybody's getting along. Everybody learned from Rodney King's statement, can't we all just get along? We've learned how to get along. We've learned how to sing in harmony. And so now we want to utilize the structure of the church that's in place to help us along. Now let's take a look at the local church. The local church is us right here at Fame Church, right? We are one local church, one local church. Now, when you bring our local church together with 22 other local congregations, we then become a presiding elder district. Okay? And presiding elder district helps us to learn from the rest of the local congregations, to share in fellowship with the rest of the congregations. Preachers can talk to other preachers in the district. Members of our congregation can talk to other members in other congregations, because we learn from each other, right? Anytime we do something and we find somebody else who does similar to the same thing and we talk with them, we can learn from them, right? How many of you have ever learned something from someone else that just had conversation with? I think everybody has, right? Good. So when Sir Isaac Newton discovered what? Law of gravity. Great. Now, did he do everything that pertains to the law of gravity? The basketball was created to defy gravity to an extent. But when you dribble it, it allows you to move it one area and then also to do a slam dunk, to do a layup, to do a long shot, free throw. Okay? All that. And we learn basically how what goes up comes down from Isaac Newton. Okay? Who discovered electricity? Edison. Thomas Edison. And he did that from, remember, a kite? Right, with a key on the end of the string. And they found a way to realize that there was electricity and lightning. Okay? And then from that, it was able to put it into a light bulb. But that wasn't the end of it. That was just a light bulb. We now have incandescent light bulbs. And they're a whole lot more powerful than the little light bulb that Thomas Edison created. We also not only have incandescent light bulbs, we now have fluorescent light bulbs that have gas inside of them and that burn, and not with the same sharpness and heat that an incandescent bulb burns, but it's a cool light, and it's an even light. And then we have this new light that we call energy-saving lights that gives the same fluorescent light that fluorescents give, but it's a very low energy consuming light bulb. So one person does one thing like Thomas Edison did, but look at all the great stuff we've done since Thomas Edison discovered the power of electricity. Our computers run on electricity. When you use our cell phone, does it run on electricity? No, it doesn't, but you charge it up with electricity. So it depends upon electricity, right? Just about everything that moves and that has any kind of regular, non-human motivated activity either runs directly on electricity, or it's empowered, or it's powered up, or it's energized by some electrical force. So all of these great things. So one person does one thing, and then another person later on through generations begin to expound on that. So when we talk to other laypersons and other congregations, we learn from them. We learned a whole lot from Richard Allen, who organized the AMA Church. We've learned a whole lot from the other laypersons who were here a long time ago. Biddy Mason, who actually organized First AMA Church in Los Angeles. The lay people and ministers alike have learned a lot from her and what she did. So, and then you get 2 or 3 presiding elder districts together, and they make an annual conference. An annual conference is made up of preachers and laypersons alike. And the local church is a church that's in place for everybody. Everybody has a role, everybody has a relationship within the local church, because this is where we work, this is where we serve, this is where we live out our own spiritual conviction. This is where we serve God, this is where we praise God, this is where we worship God. This is where we grow together, and we encourage each other together. We pray together. We forgive each other together. We learn together. All those things happen in the local church. And then when the presiding elder districts come, then presiding elder then is able to see how well we're utilizing what the AME Church has provided in maintaining our membership and helping to keep everybody in the common space, in the common area. Presiding elder is able to see how the church is growing and expanding, whether or not we're reaching out to others and inviting them to come to know the same Christ that we know. He's able to understand, he's able to come and understand how well we are financing and supporting not only what we need to do at the local church, but how well we are financing and supporting the operation of the AME Church beyond our local church. So presiding elder is a supervisor of our local work here, along with the other 22 churches that are in his district. And when these 2 districts come together, then the presiding elder, those 2 or 3 presiding elder districts, then become an annual conference. And the annual conference is where preachers are brought into the AME Church. This is where they're ordained. This is where they're taught. This is where they're actually trained. And this is where they're engaged in work. This is where they're actually sent out or appointed or assigned to pastor churches. An annual conference is where the minister retires from when they get old enough to retire. Annual conference is where an AME church has to be, where an AME preacher has to be reproved if they do some things that are wrong. And preachers are human too, right? Every one of them are human. None of them are God. They're all human. So sometimes preachers will make some bad judgments, will make some bad decisions, and will do some things that may not be right, may very well be wrong. And then the AME church has a structure that can help them to get back in line, right? So we get out of line every now and then, but thank God for rules that bring us back in line. So the annual conference is able to do that. And so from the annual conference, we bring 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other annual conferences together. Then we then develop an Episcopal district, and that's just for territory. That's just for geography. And then you bring 20 of those Episcopal districts together. Then we have what is called a connection. That's our denomination, the AME Church. So we are denominational as the AME Church. Okay? So let me give you a little test to see how much you know about the AME Church. What's the name of your church? First African Methodist Episcopal Church. All right. Why is it called African Methodist Episcopal? African means that we are from the lineage of Africans, that we came from, or at least the original founders and framers of the AME Church were all from the continent of Africa. Okay? Methodist means that we took on the shape and the frame of the Methodist structure, the Methodist religion, because it's simple, it's plain, it's direct, and it's very easily understood, meaning that we don't speak Latin, we don't do Latin Mass, we don't do Greek sermons, we don't do Hebrew songs. We are English-speaking when we are in an English-speaking country. We are French-speaking if we're in a French-speaking country. Or we are Spanish-speaking if we're in a Spanish-speaking communion. So we communicate in a language that the people who we're speaking with and worshiping with understand. Okay, good. So in this sense, we are part of the AME Church, and then so that's the name of our church. And Episcopal means we have Episcopal government, Episcopal form of government. That means it's led by bishops, right? And the bishops are at the top of our leadership. And then from bishops, we come down to other areas, all the way down to the local preacher at that point. Okay? So the name of our church is First AME Church. It's African because we're from the continent of Africa. The original framers of it was. Methodist because we are the structure of Methodism, a simple, well-defined, well-refined structure and frame that we all understand. And Episcopal because we are under Episcopal form of government, meaning that pastors are sent out by bishops, and bishops actually supervise the church ultimately. So the name of your pastor is? Oh, okay, good. Yep. Just want to make sure we knew each other. Okay, good. And the name of your presiding elder district is? You can write this down too, so you'll know what it is going forward. Name of your presiding elder district? The Los Angeles North District. It's the Los Angeles North, or the LA North District. Okay? And the name of your presiding elder? Dr. Allen L. Williams, presiding elder Allen L. Williams. Okay. What's the name of your annual conference? The Southern California Annual Conference. Okay? Southern California Annual Conference. The name of your Episcopal district. Fifth Episcopal District. Okay? And the name of your bishop? Bishop Theodore Larry Kirkland. and the name of your Episcopal supervisor, which is Bishop Kirkland's wife. Her name is, and Mrs. Kirkland won't answer. Mrs. Mary L. Kirkland. Okay, now let's go back and see if we can help this make this sense. Now, if the name of our church is First AME Church, then how do we have kinship with the rest of the churches? We have, as a part of the our presiding elder district, we have Grant AME Church, we have St. James AME Church, we have St. Mark AME Church. We have Ward. Ward is not a member of our church now. No, he was before, and we changed that over in the other sense. So we switched over from Ward and pulled Grant into our church. Second AME Church is a member in our congregation. And we have St. Paul AME Church in San Bernardino, California. We also have Allen AME Church in San Bernardino, California. We have Allen AME Church in Riverside, California, all a member of our our presiding elder district. We have Bethel AME Church in Monrovia. And we have Reverend Francine Brookins is the pastor of Bethel AME Church also. And that's a part of our presiding elder district. So these are all congregations that help to make up our our presiding elder district. And the other presiding elder district that we have beside ours is the LA South Las Vegas district. And that's presiding elder Roosevelt Lindsay. And they have the rest of the churches, like Bethel AME Church, like Ward AME Church, like Core Christ Our Redeemer AME Church, all those other churches, Brookins AME Church, they're part of the LA South District under presiding elder Roosevelt Lindsay. So they make up, these two presiding elder districts makes up the Southern California Conference. So the Southern California Conference doesn't stand by itself, but it has parallel bodies too. There's the Pacific Northwest Conference, which is right up in Oregon and Washington and Montana and Alaska. And then there's the Desert Mountain Conference, which is Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. And then there's the Midwest Annual Conference, and that is Kansas, the whole state of Kansas, the whole state of Nebraska, and the northwestern part, or northeastern part, rather, of Missouri. Okay? And then there's the Missouri Annual Conference. And Missouri Annual Conference is the rest of the state of Missouri, which therefore would become the southeast part of the state of Missouri. And then there's the California Conference. California Conference is the northern tier of California from San Luis Obispo all the way up to the Oregon line and cutting over to Nebraska, not Nebraska, but Nevada. And the northern part of Nevada, northwestern part of Nevada, becomes a part of the California Conference. And then there's the Southern California Conference. And that's everything from the San Luis Obispo line south and then the southwestern part of the state of Nevada. So all that makes up the Southern California Annual Conference. So combining all these 6 districts together, 6 annual conferences together, we have what is called the 5th Episcopal District. And the 5th Episcopal District is not by itself. There are 19 other Episcopal districts, the first of them being in the northeastern part of the country, which is what I call the eastern seaboard states, or at least the northeastern states, rather. Some may call it the New England area. Everything from up to Rhode Island and down through New York, and all the little small states in the northeastern area, Massachusetts being a part of that. So all those make up the first Episcopal District, and also the eastern part of the state of Pennsylvania. And then there's a second district, which makes up the full part of Maryland, of Delaware, of New Jersey, of North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. is a part of the second district. And then the third district, which is made up of the western part of the state of Pennsylvania, and then Ohio. Then the fourth district is made up of Illinois, Indiana, North and South Dakota, Iowa, and those states. And then the fifth district, which is us, made up of 14 states, and I just told you what the 14 states were in the division of the annual conferences. And then there's the sixth district, which is the state of Georgia by itself. Then there's the seventh district, which is the state of South Carolina by itself. Then there's the eighth district, which is the states of Mississippi and Louisiana. And then there's the ninth district, the state of Alabama by itself. The 10th district, the state of Texas by itself. The 11th district, the state of Florida by itself. The 12th district, the states of Oklahoma and Arkansas. And then the 13th district, which is therefore Tennessee and Kentucky. And then we go across the waters to the continent of Africa. And those will be comprised of basically the 14th Episcopal District, which is part of West Africa, all the way down to the 20th district. So all those are part. So when you look at who we are, that's how we're structured, because everybody has to have territory that they are associated with. Because if we don't, we're going to be continually getting in each other's stuff, right? How many, when you were young, had a sister or brother, younger or older, who got in your stuff every now and then? Well, most everybody did, okay? So that's what brings about conflict sometimes, when we get outside of our lane and get into somebody else's territory. So having all these clear lines of distinction help us to do our work and to give everybody else the authority to do their work too, okay? So let's take a look at the organization and the flow of responsibility within the AME Church. There's the General Conference, and the General Conference, that's our body that we create law in. That's our legal, I shouldn't say our legal body, that's our legislative body. So any law that we are governed by in the AME Church, that law is made in the General Conference. That law is also, the General Conference is also where we elect all of our bishops. Annual Conference is where we also retire all bishops. It's the place where all bishops are assigned to their work. The General Conference is also the place where we elect general officers. And it's the place where we also approve the work of our Judicial Council and elect members who are part of the Judicial Council. Okay? Flip over real quick to page 5. Inside of the General Conference, we have commissions, and all those commissions help to do all the stuff that need to be done for the AME Church. What happened in Los Angeles today that everybody might know about in the news? They closed down all of the schools in the LA Unified School District. And they did it because there was a threat made against the safety of students and staff persons too, okay? We're not gonna talk about the credibility of the threat, but the threat was made and all the schools were closed down. And the superintendent of education, it was his responsibility to notify a whole lot of folk. He had to notify the mayor, had to notify the chief of police, had to notify the sheriff's department, had to notify the FBI, had to notify the school board members, had to notify the secretary of, Secretary of Education in Sacramento, had to notify the superintendent of public instruction in Sacramento, had to notify the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., had to notify all of the law enforcement on the national, the regional, and the local levels. Why? Because a part of us were threatened, and they needed to know that so that they could know what they had to do should it be necessary for them to get involved and get engaged too. So the structure that we have says that we got national levels, we have state levels, we have county levels, and then we have local or municipal levels in government. And each one of them has leadership. And that's put in place so everybody can do what they need to do. If something happens within the city of Los Angeles that's a crime, we call the police department. If something happens in the county, we call whom? The sheriff's department. Or somebody is in our house and won't move out. They were renting and they won't move out, we call the sheriff's department, because that's a county matter. And county taxation is made, so it is under purview of that taxability issue that the sheriff get involved. Or we got the CHP, and the CHP, California Highway Patrol's responsibilities are where? Okay, most of us think they are on the freeway, yes. But I came to learn too this year that they have a jurisdiction in any municipality in the whole state of California. They can do all of the work that the sheriffs do. They can do all the work that the police officers do, because they have that authority that's within their jurisdiction. However, their greatest work is done on the freeway. If you remember back in 1991, when the insurrection happened, probably 1992, when the insurrection happened in Los Angeles, what we call some call it riots, but we know it wasn't really a riot. It was organized rebellion against some of the oppression that was going on. So when that took place, there were not only the police officers riding up and down the streets, but it's also sheriff's department was riding up. And then there was also the CHP, California Highway Patrol, and they were just as much at home and authorized to do their work as the local LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. So all that has its role. So if all that has its own place, then all of the structure that we have has its own reason, has its own place too. In the connectional level, we've got a commission on finance and statistics. They're responsible for putting together the budget that everybody's supposed to be able to pay in, so all the people in the AME Church who are employees can be paid. So we can send money to support our schools. From Wilberforce University, which was the first black school organized in the AME Church, all the way down to Allen University in Columbia, South Carolina, all the way down to Morris Brown University in Atlanta, Georgia, or in Edward Waters College in Jacksonville, Florida, or in Payne Theological Seminary in Atlanta, or Payne Theological Seminary in Ohio, or Turner Theological Seminary in Atlanta, or even Shorter College in Little Rock, Arkansas. All of these schools, Paul Quinn in Dallas, Texas, these schools owned by the AME Church. The AME Church budget that we pay into supports these schools. All of the districts we have overseas, and there's 6 of them, part of our budget goes to supply support for them so all of their needs can be met on the continent of Africa, and then the 7th one, which would be in the Caribbean. So all those are necessary to keep us moving and to keep us organized and keep us meeting needs. There's a pension department. The pension department helps, and what we call now is employee security. It kind of works like the 401k plans that you have on your job if you're working, or any other kind of pension you may have with your job. Well, we have that for the AME Church pastors. Publications is kind of like the LA Times, or kind of like the Sentinel newspaper. Well, the publication we have is the oldest one for black people in America, and it's called the Christian Recorder. It was organized way back in the latter 1700s, and it's still moving today. And other was like the missionary Voice of Missions, or the Secret Chamber. Each one of these newspapers or publications or Journal of Religious Education, they are publications that help to keep the news of the AME Church alive, and we all get a part of that. When we read them, we know what's going on in the rest of our church. And our church is not just a small church. We have a presence on 5 of the 7 continents in the world. 5 of the 7 continents in the world, AME churches are present on them. So we have a pretty good widespread of placement in the global community. Minimum salary, church expansion, missions, women in ministry, higher education, youth affairs, Christian education, social action, lay organization, Christian General Conference, and conferences and assemblies. All of these are part of the structure of the AME Connectional Church. Then come down to our General Conference. And we just talked about what the General Conference was. We talked about the annual conference being the one where our preachers are actually brought in and where they're taught and engaged, and down to the district conference where presiding elders bring us all together and make sure we talk and share ideas and share future engagement and successes. Then the quarterly conference, which is a business conference for our local church, where presiding elder comes and we get a chance to tell him or tell her how well we're doing, and they can tell us how we might be able to do some things differently to get a better outcome, okay? Then there's a church conference. Like we just had one last night. And then this church conference, all of the decisions that affect the ministry and the life of the local church, all those are made at the local level in the church conference. And then there's the official board where decisions are made to keep the church strong and keep the church alive. All right? So that's the general structure of the AME Church. Okay. All right, we have some duplications on the rest of them on pages 7, 8, 9, and 10. But let's go over page number 11. It's not numbered as number 11, but it's the last 3 pages in it, and it's the financial structure of the AME Church. Any organization that is going to do well, any organization is going to survive and thrive, has to have support. And what is the best level of support for any of us? Money. So all of us need finances. There are not a lot of things we can do without a little money, somebody engaging a little money, right? Money provides for an education. Money provides for our homes, for our apartment, for our place to live. Money provides for our food. And nowadays, money provides for our water. When I was young as a boy back in the 1960s and 70s, I never would have thought you had to buy water. We just turned the faucet on and water came out. But now you have to buy Evian, you have to buy Smart Water, all these new distributors of water. So everything we do, it costs us. It costs us to get here tonight. Whether you drove or whether you caught the bus or whether somebody picked you up and brought you, all of that was at a cost. Somewhere there's a cost associated. Well, in order for the church to work and move, there has to be some exchange of money too. Because in order for us to keep all of the employees of the AME Church paid, in order for us to keep all of our schools open and operating, in order for us to keep the clinics and hospitals open that we have on the continent of Africa and other parts of the world, all those are kept open and operating at a cost. So let's take a look at how we provide for those costs, okay? And we provide those costs through what we call a general budget, okay? And the general budget that we have helps the whole AME Church to thrive and to operate. So when we have a budget here at the local church, we approved the budget for Fame Church last night. And it provides for the salary for all of our staff person. It provides for the lights to be on and burning and to be paid for when the bill comes. It provides for us to pay taxes. It provides for us to have microphones and these sorts of things, and to print off the paper that we're reading from. All of these may seem small and minuscule, but when you put them all together, that's a pretty big chunk of money that we spend. So we also have in our local budget an amount of money that we send to the Connectional Church, so all the other things beyond us can be paid for. And we send about $70,000 a year, about $75,000 on the first half, which is March 1st, and about $75,000 on the second half, which would be September 1st. So a total of about $150,000 a year that First AME Church sends to the Connectional Church to meet all those needs I just talked to you about. So just as we send that out, other churches within the annual conference, they send a big amount out too. And all of the annual conferences in the 5th district send big amounts out. And by the time you get down to the 5th district, you'll see $5,720,336 that we spend out for a quadrennial for general budget, okay? And that's and this one is from 2009 up to 2012. We're looking now basically at 2013 up to 2016. So the budget didn't change any, so we're still at the same amounts that's on this sheet here now, okay? So if you look at the 1st district, they pay $7,954,648 every 4 years to help to keep the AME Church alive. The 2nd district pays $7,494,800 every 4 years, a quadrennial. And come right on down, when you get down to the 5th district, we pay, not only are we the 5th district, but we pay also the 5th highest amount in the AME Church. If you look down to the 11th district, they pay $6,252,516 for quadrennial, and we paying again $5,720,336. So we pay 10% of the budget. If you look over on the next page, the total operating budget for quadrennial is $57,546,272. Of that $57 million, we pay $5,720,000. So we pay 1/10 of the general budget for the whole AME Church. So 5th District can say we're pretty special. We pay 10% of what the whole AME Church uses to meet its needs. So you get $57,546,272 a quadrennial. What in the world do you do with all that money? That's a lot of money, right? $57.5 million, that's a lot of money. Well, let's take a look at the bottom of that same page, and you'll see where the money is being appropriated. For the executive branch, which means that's the bishops, and those are retired bishops, and that provides full salary for all the active bishops and a half salary for each one of the retired bishops, and also provides stipend and a gift to widows of bishops and widowers of bishops, because we do now have a widower. We have a man who had been widowed by his wife, Bishop Sarah Davis, who died about 2 years ago. And also for the office of treasurer, there's $1,504,000 that's being sent there. So office of treasurer has a big responsibility because they have to manage the $57 million. And they have to also make sure that all the checks are sent out to the various departments that they are raised for. Office of secretary, because that's the person who's the chief information officer, $197,000, and then the Christian Education Department, $137,000, and Research and Development Department, $160,000. Now, these monies here, these are for a year. The budget up top is for 4 years, but when you come down to these broken down branches, all these now are the amounts that we spend per year for those departments. If you come over to Sunday School Union, we spend $96,000 a year on the next page, and the Annuities and Investment Department, $152,697. That's kind of like the Social Security Department for the AME Church, meaning all the persons who are putting into it, then they get a retirement out of it upon retirement. Global Witness Ministry, $278,402. You come right on down the line, and I want to direct your attention down to number 21. That's double X, one I. Double X, single I. Educational institutions. How much we spend every year on educational institutions? That's every year. Then look right under that. How much we spend in extended education budget? Right. Okay. Now, if you add all those up, and the international fund, the education institution, the extended budget education, and then the rest of the amount of money we spend on education, we spend the highest amount of all of the areas that we spend money for, we spend it on education. We spend about almost 30% of our budget, not 30%, excuse me, about 13% of our budget we spend on Department of Education. There's no other line item in the budget we spend more money on. So that means the biggest line item in our AME Church budget is for education. Why? Because we feel that education is so important that we spend more money for it than anything else. When you teach a person how to get a job and how to earn a living, you probably won't have to worry too much about having to pay bail money to get them out of jail, or to pay court costs to get them get an issue tried, or pay an attorney to defend them. So we think it's wise to put the money in on the front end, and you won't have to put more money in on the back end. So education is important. So a lot of the money that we spend for the AME Church is actually spent for education. So all of us can feel real proud about that. And every other category would be in a smaller amount than that. Even the Episcopal District Fund, the Episcopal branch, we only spend $2.9 million in that, whereas we spend almost $4 million, which is a little bit more than $3.5 million in education. Okay, so that's good for our understanding. So you can take those figures, and at the end, the total expense for a year is $14,371,890 a year that we spend to keep the AME Church connectional operation together. Okay, now that's a lot of information, but thank God you have it in print. You can take home and read it. You can take home and refer to it every now and then. Somebody asks you a question, you can wrap that off with authority because you got it in print. You got it right before you, right? And again, we have structure because structure helps us to get the job done. Structure helps us identify responsibilities and roles. Structure helps us always to realize that each one of us has a separate responsibility than everybody else. My backbone, my skeleton is not fused to yours, right? Yours is not fused to mine. Your skeleton is connected to your muscular system. And it works kind of like a pulley. You can do all the stuff you need to do. You can dance, you can break dance, you can do the electric slide, you can do the hustle, anything you want to do. You can do that because your structure is in place. I can do the same thing because my structure is in place. And each one of us know we all have a role and responsibility, and we can get the job done because it's laid out in structure. Well, the church does the same thing. We can get ministry together. We can get the gospel preached. We can get people witnessed to. We can help people find Christ. Each one of us, because we have a structure in place, and it's already identified. The church here knows what it can do. When we meet to worship, we let the choir sing, we let the ushers usher, we let the preachers preach, and we do our part in worship, all because we have structure. If everybody tried to sing at the same time, and I wanted to sing one song, and you sung another song, and we got some jazz going on, a little hip-hop going on over here, a little rap going on over there, a little jazz, a little rock and roll going on, I mean, it would be a mess. But we have structure, and we know that structure and form provides a way for us to do what we do in unity and do it in harmony. So that's why the AME Church has all these various levels of authority, all these conferences. We got an annual conference, we got a quarterly conference, we got a district conference, we got a general conference, but they're all necessary. We got a local church, we got a presiding elder district, we got a church, we got a level with the Episcopal district. All of them are necessary because they all help us to realize who we are and how we have to manage our work, okay? So structure is important, all right? It's kind of like history. It's a part of who we are. Thank you so much. Any questions? Yes?
What district is Georgia?
Georgia is the 6th Episcopal district. It's the full state of Georgia. Matter of fact, Georgia has, I think, the 3rd largest amount of churches in this Episcopal district of all of our Episcopal districts. The one with the most churches in it is South Carolina. South Carolina is our largest population for AME churches in the whole country. And then second is, you have any idea? Second is the state of Florida. And then Georgia comes in next. And 5th district, even though we pay 10% of the budget, we're way on down the line in number of churches. We're number 5 in the amount of budget we pay, but we're about number 6 and number 7 in the number of churches, 6 or 7 largest church. Largest Episcopal district. But with some strong folk in the 5th district, we carry our load. We got California on our side, all right? All right. All right, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Any other questions? All right, our dean, she's coming, and give her your attention and give her a hand. She does such a good job, and we're so happy we can entrust your fellowship to her leadership, and you get all the job done. How many of you are getting short? That's a military term, meaning you got short time. How many of you got one class left? Oh, Gloria has one class left. Oh, one class. All right. That means you're getting short. You ain't got short time left. And as soon as you get finished, she'll be putting together a program, at least a date for us to come to the Bible study. And we'll do that on Wednesday nights, and we'll read you into full membership. And remember that before you're ready in membership, we expect you to choose an area in the church you're going to work in. The choir, the usher board, one of the missionary societies, a ministry, a commission, Sunday school, whatever it is you want to do. It's all available for you, all right? Or media. All right. All right. Thanks much. All right. Appreciate you. Okay.